Thought I'd come down to the beach for a change of scenery. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I don't even bring any headphones, which is moronic really, but there we go. So we're at the beach. Had some news today. A couple of days ago I went for a CT scan to see what the cancer has been doing inside my body, and found out today that the answer is not very much, which is really good. Yep, no new tumours, the existing tumours haven't got any bigger, so what more could you ask for really? Not much. The problems that I've been having though with the sunitinib, the cancer medication, have been pretty dire, apart from all the visits to the bathroom, which are pretty much under control now. I'm still left with a huge amount of weakness and tiredness, so I just want to sleep the whole time. There have been days when I've slept all day, and the other day I decided to help empty the dishwasher, so I picked up the drawer, or the container of cutlery, to put the knives and forks away, and by the time I was halfway putting the knives and forks back into the drawer, I was all tired and needed a little break, which is tragic. Pathetic, tragic. So anyway, I made the decision about a week ago to stop taking the cancer medication, because life is a million times better without it, and that's what it's all about right now. When you've got a limited amount of life ahead of you, you want that period to be good. You want to be happy. You want to feel like Carrie. You want to smile. You don't want to be miserable and tired and want to be close to a bathroom. So that's what I've done. Talked to the oncologist today, and they weren't really against it at all. We'll have another scan in a couple of months and see if I've got any new tumours or if anything interesting has happened, and then maybe I'll go back onto it again. But at this stage, I don't think I will. It's just not worth it. The other thing I've been doing is reading the Bible, which I thought it would be funny to have a atheist cancer man reads the Bible, and maybe he gets illuminated and he finds religion and goes to heaven or something. I thought that we could chronicle that over a period of time. I'd read different chapters and get insights and something, but hell no indeed. What I decided to do is I just read the first 3 chapters of Genesis. It took me a good few days. It's really hard going. It's not a pleasant read. There are a million contradictions, or apparent contradictions to my eyes. There are a million questions about serpents and how some of them can talk apparently, and how God can't find people when he goes looking for them, and it drove me crazy, absolutely crazy. If you are the type of person who likes to ask questions, the Bible is not for you. That is the conclusion that I've come to, because it's utter insanity, or at least the first 3 chapters of Genesis are. That's the other chapters where God creates the heavens and earth, and makes Adam and Eve, and then curses them for eating a fruit. Anyway, it's all utter madness, and I won't be doing that again. Anyway, there's an update. Talk to you later. Bye. Some questions of mine that I've noticed along the way. Where does the big blob of water come from? Because right at the start of Genesis, it talks about this big blob of water which seems to be floating around in space. I've never heard of the big blob of water before. Then God makes some lights in the sky / firmament. He makes a big light for the sun. He makes a smaller light for the moon, and lots of itty bitty little lights for the stars. Now we all know, ladies and gentlemen, that's not how the universe works. But okay, because stars aren't little lights in the sky, just so you know. Where does heaven get created in other Bibles? I don't know. There's like 150 or so different translations. It's ridiculous, by the way. Chapter 2 seems to change the order of that, which confused me. He seems to change it to man first, then plants, then animals and birds. So anyway, just not clear. The writing's just not clear to me. So my hypothesis now is maybe God didn't really create the plants and the trees and stuff in chapter 1. He just created blueprints in chapter 1, the blueprints, and then chapter 2 he actually creates the the manifestations of these blueprints is a theory that I came up with, but I shouldn't have to come up with. Not allowed to eat from the fruit, not allowed to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Question is, how do you identify it? How would Adam know it? Which one is that tree? Did God like walk him through the garden and say, that one there, you're not allowed to have that one? Or was there a signpost? Or if God didn't want Adam or anybody else to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, why did he have the tree in the garden? Why not just not have it? So then God, he either creates afresh or summons, it's not obvious to me, not clear to me at all based on the words, anyway, in some manner, all the world's birds and land animals come to the Garden of Eden or are in the Garden of Eden. And he tells Adam, you need to name them all right now. That just seems to me like a really big job, naming all the animals. It's not just the time taken to speak the words, it's the imagination involved in thinking of names for all these things. It's a big job. And what language, but we're looking at that. Together they decide that none of these creatures, none of these birds or animals are going to be a very good helper for man as he tends the Garden of Eden. It's a bit sad. What will they do? Some more questions. So if you put all of the world's birds and animals in one lush garden, wouldn't they eat it? Wouldn't they just decimate? Wouldn't they decimate the Garden of Eden? Or maybe they're not hungry. How do penguins and polar bears and kangaroos get to or from their appropriate parts of the world to get into the Garden of Eden? Does God like teleport animals around the planet? Is that what he's doing? Or do we have to wait for the penguin to waddle all the way from Antarctica to the Middle East somewhere so that Adam can name it? Which doesn't sound right to me. So God decides to put the man to sleep so he can extract a rib and make a woman. Why didn't God just create a female in the first place? Why didn't he just do it immediately? He's created a bazillion fishes and birds and animals and cattle beasts, and he's created males and females of all of them. Why not also humans? Why does he need to use this weird rib technique in order to create a woman? Why couldn't he just use whatever he used for every other creature? So she'll know about the difference between good and evil, just like God does. Some questions. How does Eve communicate with a serpent? Like, what language is involved here? Talking to animals is not a thing in the Bible. There's one other talking animal, it's a donkey, and God just sort of talks through the donkey to talk to some other bloke. How did the serpent know about the tree of knowledge of good and evil? If the serpent knew about it, why didn't the serpent eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil? Or maybe it had already. All the animals of creation have been created or summoned by God into the Garden of Eden just now, and presumably sent away again, but not the serpent. The serpent's still there. Why is the serpent still there? Are all the animals still there? Just questions that get into my brain. Why didn't God say, oh my God, a talking serpent? How odd. He just accepts this as perfectly reasonable, perfectly fine. People suggest that somehow Satan is involved in this. The bits of Genesis that I've been reading don't say anything about Satan being involved. Wouldn't God's Satan detector be triggered? I mean, surely God would understand when he was talking to Satan. You'd think he'd notice. And suddenly they're embarrassed by their nakedness. They make crude clothes from fig leaves. Now this is a momentous occasion, in my opinion. This is the first time mankind has made something. That's cool, that's really neat. But apparently it's a sin. Well, I'm not clear on what the sin is exactly. But the point is, the serpent was right. God has lied, and Eve doesn't die, which is what God said would happen. And she does indeed gain knowledge. I want to know, in what universe is knowledge a bad thing? Knowledge is good. The man and the woman, they hide from him, and they claim to be hiding from him because they're naked, which is weird, because they're not naked. They've just said that they're wearing a lovely fig leaf outfit, so they're not naked. So why are they embarrassed by their nakedness that they don't have? Questions. God doesn't know that they've eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil? I thought God was all everything, right? He has to ask the humans if they've done it. And more amazingly, God can't find two humans in the Garden of Eden. He's got to wander around looking for them. He can't find them until they step out from behind some bushes and go, here we are. He's annoyed by the serpent, and so he curses the serpent. and all serpents thereafter to crawl on their bellies from there on. So presumably they used to have little eggs, these little serpents, little salamander kind of creatures. But anyway, they don't have them anymore. They're now on their bellies the whole time. Maybe they had wings, who knows. God is annoyed by the woman because she ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God's annoyed by the woman, so he curses this woman and all women from now on with painful childbirth, which is a dick move. It's a big dick move. But hey, God is annoyed by the man too. Mostly, I think, by the man, because the man is supposed to look after his woman. And he curses not just this man, but all men to a lifetime of hard toil, producing crops from fields that are filled with thorns and thistles, which I don't think is on the same level as childbirth. Maybe it is. The mistakes of an individual shouldn't curse an entire species or entire gender or an entire anything, in my opinion. Also, this God seems to be particularly short-sighted, isn't he? Because the curse against the man seems to have lost some of its bite over the centuries. Personally speaking, for myself, I have not had a lifetime of hard toil producing crops from fields filled with thorns and thistles. Yet women continue to have painful childbirth. He decides that he should now banish them from Eden. And the reason he wants to banish them from Eden now is so that they don't eat from the tree of life and gain immortality. The tree of life, you say? We haven't heard of that before. And it wasn't banned before. Why is it banned now? God makes them something nicer to wear, out of skins. What creature did God kill to create the skins to make the clothes for Adam and Eve? Did he exterminate an entire species for these skins? When he created all the creatures on Earth, how many of each type did he create? Was it like 2? Because he only created 2 humans. So did he make 2 of everything, just like, in the Ark story? If he did, as I say, he just exterminated an entire species to make some clothes for Adam and Eve, which seems a bit odd. And when, this is a side tangent slightly, but when did he create all the beetles? And why did he create so many beetles? God didn't forbid eating from the tree of life earlier. This is a new thing. Suddenly this tree is important. Did he not think about that earlier? Has he just remembered that there was the tree of life that he didn't want the humans to eat from? And on the east side he put some cherubims with a little wavy flaming sword. And these cherubims with the flaming sword are to stop creatures getting to the tree of life. Why do you only need to guard the east side of the Garden of Eden? What about the other directions? Why can't creatures get into the Garden of Eden from there? Is it down at the end of a valley? Is it the ocean, the top of a cliff? It just, I don't know, just seemed odd. Man and woman were supposed to be created in God's image, and I don't reckon they were in God's image until they'd eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Before that, they were these sort of blissfully ignorant, blank-eyed simpletons. They didn't even know they were naked. They were just these sort of lumps sitting around. I would like to contend that an inquiring mind, or an inquiring human, is far more desirable than one that sits meekly and does what it's told. I also wonder, surely this whole scenario has played out exactly as God intended. He's God, after all, right? And this is the very beginning of his creation story. Surely he thought this through. Surely he was aware of the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I mean, why did he create these things if not to have them eaten? My final question. Now that Adam has been banished from the Garden of Eden, and remember it was his job to tend the Garden of Eden, who's looking after the Garden of Eden? Has it gone to rack and ruin? And the point of all this is that I read 3 very short chapters over a period of days, because it was very hard work understanding what the heck they were on about. And I came up with 1,000,000 questions to 3 chapters. There are 1,189 chapters in the Bible. Anyway, it's just a very frustrating book, and unless you're not prepared to question anything, I don't understand how it wouldn't just drive you crazy reading it. Apologies to all my religious friends, not that I have many, but there are people I know who are religious who watch this, and I apologize to you, but I don't think Kerry's going to be converted on his deathbed. Anyway, see ya. Bye.